Hello, 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 hello. Testing. Okay, cool. My goodness. I don't know how I'm going to handle this, but I have so many books to catch you up on, especially because last week I did my 2026 book list. So that pushed me behind. It's going to be a little crazy. I'm going to start with a book that was sent to me. Actually, two books that were sent to me by the publishers. One that I was kind of surprised they sent me because it was published in 2019. But hey, I was really happy to get a free book. So I wanted to talk about these books with you. You know what? Let's start with that book. This is a popular book too. If I Run by Terry Blackstock. I had never read Terry Blackstock, and I've known about Terry Blackstock for a long time because my mom reads her books and loves them. And I should have known I would have enjoyed it because my mom got me into true crime stuff. And as someone that reads a lot of true crime books, there is even a name of a person in this book that was mentioned. And I've read the autobiography by that person. But I'm not going to talk about that because I feel like that might give something away. But I'm just saying that there is a name in here that is a real person with a real story that this has similarities to, in my opinion. So the fact that they actually mentioned it makes sense. If I Run is a very interesting tale because when you start to read this book, you don't really know what's going on. You know that there is a woman on the run. Her name is Casey Cox. This starts out where her best friend Brent had been murdered, and she's on the run because the way it all looked, she knows she's going to be charged for his murder, but she didn't do it. So that's all you know, is that she's just trying her best to figure out what she could do to cover her tracks so no one finds her, how she's able to get her license, how she's able to change her identity. And so this goes through a whole bunch of things that she does to try to keep her name clear while she is being charged for something and the cops are looking for her. And there's a private investigator named Dylan. Now he has PTSD. He had been in the military. He's dealing with his own things that he's gone through. And he starts to uncover Casey's story, finds out a bit of her past and that she's a little bit similar to him in different ways. This is not her first time finding a dead body. And that is part of why she is on the run. There were so many layers to this story, and I just thought it was excellent. And I kept wanting to know more and more about what Dylan was going to find out. And then on top of it, Casey finds out some other case going on, and she wants to solve that. So it's like you have a whole bunch of things, like 3 crimes in one book going on. And it was so good, so compelling. I will say it started out a little bit slow because you're like, so can you tell us details? Casey, tell us details of how Brent died. Like what did he look like? You know nothing. And it takes quite a while before you start to learn things. So the whole time I'm scratching my head going, what is going on? There is a huge faith element in this book. This is a Christian book and it's a mystery. So Casey, she doesn't really have a belief in God. She doesn't really think that he exists, but she just keeps seeing things going on as if God is placing her in different places to protect her. So I really liked how she is learning through people that she interacts with that God actually cares for her. The ending will leave you hanging. It was very good and it continues to the next story. So I'm going to have to keep reading this. I think there are 2 more books, so I will read those. I'm going to actually get to those as soon as I can. The other book that I was sent, this isn't going to be published until, let me check. This is set to be published in March. So I was really happy because I actually saw this on my Goodreads. It came up for middle grade books, Christian middle grade books. I was thinking, oh, this looks very interesting. And then I was able to get sent this through the publisher. I read it on my e-reader, my Nook. But yeah, Light Seekers, A Kingdom of Shadows. This is the first book, so it will be a series. There were a lot of characters in this, but they're slowly introduced to you. I think what I struggled with the most is that there were so many different new terms, new names, new things that I had to understand. And I need to have descriptions. I need to understand them painted for me. And I feel like I didn't get that all the time. So let me tell you a little bit about this story before. First off, this author, it's not the first book I've read by this author. I was a little familiar. I really enjoyed the disappearances. So for Kingdom of Shadows, Finn and Lydia, they're siblings, and they live in this pretty dark area. Their mother kind of abandons them or leaves them with like this woman to care for them. And the woman kicks them out when they're really young, like really little. I was like, how could they do that? You know, that's just awful. So they have some thievery that they get involved with to try to survive. There are these oroflies. These are kind of like lightning bugs They're like globish type. I don't know exactly how big they are. I didn't really understand. But the biggest, because they bring out so much light in this dark place that they live in, they could get money for these. And that's how they try to survive. And they are saving to get out. And they haven't really heard of people escaping or leaving. So the place they live in is Wildfell. And these are set in different towns in Wildfell. They live in what is called the bells. So there are bells that will ring. Finn has a best friend named Adrian. They go on this adventure together with Lydia, the sister. And while they are traveling, they meet up with some other people that have sort of the same goals, but then they just become a team. Adrian is kind of hesitant while Finn is like kind of trusting, taking his time to trust. Eret is this one, I guess he's like an older teen, and he takes these kids under his wing, trying to help them. And he knows a lot, and he might have known Finn and Lydia's mother. And Finn has some ability, and I'm not going to talk about it because I feel like that will give some things away, but he has a really special ability. This is a fantasy story, and it was really fun. And you know how there are so many fantasy stories, like you get just so many where they use like large spiders or spiders somewhere in the story. This one also has a spider thing, but I really loved how they described these spiders and what comes out of their web and what happens if they bite you. It was very unique, and I said, oh, I like that. That was my favorite part of the whole book, is to learn all of that. So if you don't like spiders, you're not going to like this part of the book. I feel like a lot of the story was a little bit slow. It took me some time to get into it. I would have liked to have been sucked in right away. I read it kind of slowly for my pace, where it took me maybe 5 days instead of my usual 1 to 4. And that kind of bothered me. And I was reading this back and forth with other books and kind of like, I'll read more of that another time. But I did read the last 60 pages all in one sitting. So that was good. But the rest of it is just like, I read in parts. The whole idea is that they are trying to find truth. And so that is very much like a Christian type of understanding, is Jesus is the truth. And so who is the truth, or what is the truth in this story? Why is it that there are certain things happening in their world and they have so much darkness? What happened to the light? Alliance Bride. I'm sorry about the glare on it. Here, I'll try to hold it so there's no glare. This is a brand new book. This came out a few weeks ago, and I bought it pretty much the day it came out. I took a while before I actually read it because I had other books that I had been wanting to read beforehand. I just finished this book yesterday. It is a nice size. I really enjoyed it. I got pretty sucked into it the whole time. I read it in 2 days. I didn't know if this was fantasy or historical fiction at first because it seemed very Viking, like Norse tales. It didn't really make sense like it was fantasy. The woman here, Edlin is her name. She's from a place called Essex, but spelled IX, not like in England with EX. And he's a Nord. And I was like, Nord, that's very video game. What is the video game? I can't think of the video game where they have Nords. And so I was like, well, is he Norse? Is he Nordic? Because you don't really hear Nord except, Skyrim. That's the video game where they use the term Nord. So I was a little bit confused because there were elements to make this seem like it was fantasy based, but then it had a lot of things that you hear about in historical fiction. So I'm pretty certain this is supposed to be fantasy, but I didn't really fully feel like it was fantasy. I know that's odd. It seemed very realistic is what I'm saying. And that's not a bad thing at all. Edlin, she reads a lot from her Bible. I know the history of the Gutenberg press. The Bible was written in the 1500s when it was printed. There were available texts of the Old Testament that Scandinavian people would have had access to in the 1200s, 1100s even. But she had New Testament parts. So I was like, okay, so is this set in the 1500s, or is this set even older? Or is this just because it's fantasy? We'll just make believe that the Bible was written even older, put together much older than that. Obviously the Bible existed, but not as one available to the public text is what I'm saying. So that confused me too, because I wasn't understanding. Aside from that, let me tell you the story. That was those are my only issues with this book. Everything else was so good. This man is Avar. And this is Edlin. She has a brother who is a king. Their father had died. She decides that she wants peace to be brought to the place where they live and maybe have some trade open. They don't want to be attacked. They don't want to attack others. But if there is anything, they want to be able to feel protected in some way. Eschens make an alliance with the Nords through marriage. So these two get married right in the beginning of the book, and they go on a journey back off to his homeland, which is up north. It's a lot colder than where she had been from. And they learn more about each other. And this is a very slow burn book. Like, I mean, really slow burn for quite a while in the book. But it's beautiful because they're taking their time. They're trying to get to know each other. And it takes a while. And I love that it wasn't just a, hey, we're married, that's that. It wasn't instant love. Avar is a very wonderful man. Like, if you want to have what a man should be like, this guy, he cares so much about protecting his wife, even though he's not in love with his wife and needs to grow into that. He is very patient with her. He is caring. He's observant. He does what he can to show kindness to her. He is gentle, but he's also a strong man, and he's a manly man who likes to show his muscles and fight. And she is definitely a girly girl, but she doesn't really know if she has any strengths. She doesn't realize that she has little warrior qualities to her, even though she is not a warrior like some of the women that you meet in the Nords. The element of faith in this was really, really good. Okay, so there is another thing. Because of her faith in Christ, she doesn't just spread the gospel, but she lives what she can, and her husband takes note. I would have liked her to have conversations with some of the women she hangs around, maybe talking about her faith a little bit, and none of that happens. It's only really with her husband and this guy that sort of grew up in a Christian environment that lives with them too. So she had someone she could sort of relate to. There were other factors in this that at times I just felt like almost every day we have a new, like, oh, they went for a walk together. This is what they saw on their walk. And oh, she's learning how to make dresses and weaving. And she is playing with nephews and nieces. And it's very sweet. Okay, can we jump forward a little bit? But I did like the slow pace, but sometimes it just was too slow. And that was really only in the very first 200 pages, I guess, where it was kind of, I would have liked a little more, but they have some adventures. They have some fun. Overall, I loved the writing. I could feel like I was there. I could feel the way the characters felt. For content, even though this is a clean Christian story, I feel like there was a part where, not being sexual, but there were a couple times where they're undressing for different reasons. And the other one is just kind of eyeing them and watching and enjoying watching, but there's nothing described about what they are thinking about, but they pay attention. There is, passionate kissing. I thought it was fine. I mean, I've been married for 21 and a half years. So for me, it's oh, this is so sweet, newlyweds. But for someone that's maybe not married, they might be whoa, well, I haven't experienced that. And maybe it might be a little much for them, but it was clean. So it's just hard to explain that because I don't like anything that's not clean. The intensity of when it comes to, if I DNF'd a book just the other day because it started to talk with lust and things this person wanted to do to someone. And I was like, no, thanks. I'm done before you get to anything else, because I was I thought this was going to be clean and I was wrong. So yeah, I just gave up on that book. There's a lot of violence. There is talk about slaves and not really finding freedom for those slaves. There's a lot of drinking, partying, drunkenness, but there is a defining line about what is right and what is wrong throughout this book. There are talks of human sacrifices and animal sacrifices. Nothing crazy for you, nothing described for those who are worried about reading something like that. The battles wounds are described a little bit. It was a little gruesome, but not really. It was cutting it close is what I'm going to say. There's sexual harassment in this as well. There's talk about physical child abuse. So yes, overall, an amazing story. I really love this. I wanted to give this 5 stars, but because of different factors, I pushed it down a little bit, but it was still over 4 stars for me, 4.25 stars. Jo's Boys. I am so happy I finally got to read the last book from the Little Women series. I had Little Women, Little Men, and now Jo's Boys. It took forever to get to this, but I did it. It took me since my childhood to read all of these books. But you know what's interesting? So I read all about Louisa May Alcott's life. I am fascinated by her story. It was from a book I read a couple years ago. I really love learning about her, but she didn't really want to write this book. She felt kind of forced. You could sort of feel that while reading her writing, and that she was struggling to be all wholesome. And there's some things in here that are kind of questionable, and you feel really sad because it's just kind of like, okay, this happened in between Little Men and now, but we move on. And I was like, wow, that's really sad. There was some attachment to some of these Little Men characters, and she said, too bad, I'm gonna just write about these other ones. You do get some of the same characters come back. I would suggest, honestly, you need to read Little Men pretty closely to this. There's this character, Dan. He was in Little Men, and you really feel for him in this book. Some sad situations that Dan gets involved in. There are some cutesy couples, and then there's some heartbreak in this, and sometimes it's like, oh, I really wish this couple got together, and Louisa May Alcott's like, nope, listen, I'm not allowing it, just like I didn't allow Joe to be with Lori. No way. She just loves to make people upset. And I think it's kind of funny, and I think that's part of why I like her writing. Jo is such a good mom. She really is. She has these really good conversations with her sons. And I love that, how she's like, listen, I'm your mother, but I want you to be open with me, and I will not tell anyone because I care for you, but you need to tell me this. I think it will help you if you tell me. And they trust her, and they go, okay. They tell her things, and I love that. As a mom of all boys, that is so beautiful. I can relate, and I love the closeness I have with my boys, so I saw that in this. There is a character that has jail time, and I don't want to say what for, but it's just like, what? Wow. Anyway, this was a pretty good book. I wanted to get more into it, and I didn't. The Christmas Singing, there was another book I read that's part of the series, but it's like a standalone. You can read this without knowing any other story. I just can't believe that I hadn't read this yet, because it had been years since I read the first book. But this, it's like a misleading title slightly. There is a Christmas singing, but like when you read it, you don't hear anything about Christmas singing really until the last portion of the book. And I mean like the last portion of the book. And it's significant, but it's just like, where are they going to talk about Christmas singing? And I was just so confused by when it was going to show up. This is a story about Maddie, who loves to bake cakes. She is so good at it that she made her own shop. And she's in Ohio, but she talks about a heartbreak that she had 3 years earlier from Gideon. Gideon, he did something that really broke her heart, and she keeps thinking about it. But she's in a relationship now, been with Saul for 2 years now. There is like no advancements. It's just comfortable, you know? She doesn't really know. Maybe they'll get married eventually. And for Amish people, that's a long time to court someone without getting married. She has a lot of things that start to happen in her life. She goes back home for a while. It's getting close to Christmas time. She has family members with weddings. She's going to make cakes for them, but she comes across Gideon. And then she starts to find out truth about Gideon's past that he has kept a secret of why they broke up. And she is very upset. Oh my word, I feel her feelings. When I'm reading this, I feel the intensity of her heart, and I loved how this was written. It was so sweet, and I cried. I shed some tears at the end of this book. It was such a sweet Christmas story. And even though I have the sequel to that one, I haven't read it yet, so I'll get back to that in the future. But first, The Christmas House. It's really cute. I enjoyed it, not as much as The Christmas Singing. This is about Liz. Liz has one of those Amish buggy tours that she gives all year round. That is her business. She loves it. Her brother helps her out with it. They stop at family members' houses to get cocoa in the winter and cookies. But the problem is that with all the Amish houses in the area, there was an Amish house that had been sold recently within the year to a family of Englishers. And that means people that are not Amish. And they have huge light displays. They're just using all this electricity. It's causing people to stop by their house, and it's scaring the horses in the neighborhood. Oh, so much drama. All these Amish people are a little upset. Hey, I wish that they didn't move there, blah, blah, blah. But Liz, she wants to get to know this family, and she wants to make this part of her tour. And she has this guy that her father had known that now is taking the place of her brother, helping her out around Christmas time because he needs a job. And he'll just do, whatever job. And he is so nice. His name is Matt, and he helps her out. They're getting to know one another, and they start to agree with certain things with each other. And it's just a sweet story. I feel like the relationship, it didn't show much of a bond, and I was hoping for a little more of that. But it was still really cute, the friendship that you see they form, and how this house is going to change things up in the community. I don't don't know if you recall, I was talking about Discerning God's Best series, but I thought it was time that I just finished the whole series. Now, this is a not as known series. This is a little independent, and a lot of the books are just starting to come out. And I got on top of those. So now I'm up to date on all the books that are out. There is another one coming out soon. 2 just came out and they were novellas. I read the first 3 books plus 2 novellas, and I talked about them here. I read Healing of the Heart. Now, just so you know, this is a story about a family. It starts out pre-Civil War, and now we are post-Civil War. This story takes place mainly in Philadelphia instead of Shumard Oak Bend, like all the other stories. Yes, there are portions where it is definitely there in the beginning and the end, but in the middle is mainly Philadelphia. So that's why it's a bit snowy, because we do get some winter time. This does take place around a couple of years' time, but this was a very good book about Thomas, who we find out about Thomas in the first book. He was a little boy. So now he is a man. He is going to school to become a doctor because he has been very influenced by his best friend's mother, who is a native woman who is very good with medicine. Now he wants to work in the medical field to help his own place where he lives because there is not a doctor there. And while he's there, there is a girl named Teddy. Now he stays at a boarding house, and at the boarding house there are a few girls. He forms a really good friendship with her over time, and it's a long time that they are friends and get to know each other. While they are attracted to one another, I feel like they don't really talk much to each other at all. And there is this other character, this other woman, who kind of throws herself at Thomas and wants him to be with her. While he's flirted, he hasn't established a relationship with her. He's really taking his time because he's just focused on his schoolwork, but he doesn't realize that there is talk about him with this other girl. This is Teddy, and even though she works as a nurse, and she's been dealing with a lot of sexual harassment at her job, by the way. She works several jobs because she wants to be able to make some money. She has a hard time voicing things. I feel like she needs to speak up a little bit more, but she's a very good character. And the two of them get to know each other, and she's also friends with the girl that's throwing herself at Thomas. But yeah, most of this book is all about Thomas and his time in Philadelphia. We mainly get his perspective. If you have feelings for someone for so long, especially Teddy, it just didn't make sense the way it was written. This one is probably my least favorite of the books. It was good to read now that it's getting towards winter time, and we did get snow here, and I live only an hour from Philadelphia. Of course, I buy all these directly from her website, and she has signed all of my books. I really like her writing. I love getting to know the characters, but I feel like this could have been shorter or better written. Oh, I got to talk about, even though this is the last book that I read, it was the 2.5 book, so it's a novella. I should have read this after the second book. This novella is my least favorite novella of the group. It's about Delphina. She is a woman that had been in slavery, and we get to hear her story, but some of her story, it's like a repeat of one of the other books, the second book. You get to hear some of her side, but with like almost the same dialogue, and that was kind of weird to me because I didn't want a repeat. But I do love this to understand her feelings and what she went through, what she's going through as a new mother, finding love. Let's get into the really good ones now. So then there's third book, the fourth book that I just talked about, and then there is the fifth book. I loved this one. This is about Gabe. So the Native American woman that I mentioned, her son is Gabe. I can't think of the tribe that he's a part of right now, but he didn't grow up long around that tribe, because he was a young boy when his mother comes into the picture of our stories, and he's been raised mainly around white people. He is half white himself. He's a lawman now. He's a deputy, and he wants to protect Shumard Oak Bend. And he's had this thing for quite a long time for Betsy. Betsy is the school marm, and they grew up around each other, and they always had a good friendship. But now her father, who is a drunkard and a gambler, has been losing all his money, and she is very worried for her mother and for herself and for her father. She doesn't know what to do. And there's this man that is manipulative, conniving, and he's kind of pushing himself towards her. But Gabe has been trying to protect her, and he lets himself be known that he cares for her. And I think their relationship was really well talked about because you could see that they had already established a friendship. You could tell that they cared for one another, maybe not romantically at first, but it was really nice. But man, the tension you feel because of what she's going through with this guy that is manipulative, it's like you feel that, and you're like, So anyway, this was really good. And the faith elements, I gotta say, Heidi Gray McGill, the way she writes faith, this is one of the, like, her series talks so much about God and the belief and the struggles and some scriptures. And I love how she weaves it in so beautifully into every single one of her stories, at least from the series, because I've read all of the series and I haven't read her other books. But I really appreciated that. And this story, my heart was totally invested in this. I read this really fast and I loved it. That being said, so she has a new book called A Place to Belong, a companion Christmas novella. So this book happens after book 5, but you could see, so this is actually the friend of Teddy. These two ladies are friends. She comes from Philadelphia and she's pregnant. And so while she's there, she feels like she doesn't know, she's just going to be on the run. She doesn't know if she's really cared for, but the people at the boarding house, they care so much for her and they don't expect anything. And they're so kind and she's just amazed by them. I felt it was so touching how she was learning about where she can be involved to help. And she's kind of pushed by the people around her and they see the potential in her. Now, there is a man from one of the previous books, because of the Civil War that had happened, he lost his arm and has like one thing pinned up. So he's missing an arm, but he does a lot of chopping of wood in this. And he cares for her and sees who she really is. So her name is Josephine. And Jeremiah is her wood chopping one-armed man that has been noticing her. And so she sees how God provides for her. And I just loved that. I got an email from being part of the newsletter. You could get this brand new novella that Heidi Gray McGill wrote, but there's no physical copy yet, but it's also a Christmas story. And it's called Before We Belong. Prequel to all of the books is about Melvin and Mary, who Melvin is in the first book. We meet him, and his wife we had known was Mary. We know right away in the first book that she dies. But the prequel is about them after they had had their first child and they're about to like move and everything. This is a prequel to that prequel. So this goes into learning about their courting and what got them together. But what I don't like about this book is that this is the same cover as the other prequel, but maybe she's not finalizing this cover, but it's just reversed and colorized and made wintry. So that was weird to me, but I understand that this is all like independent, her publishing. But I want you guys to, if you love Christian historical fiction, please read this series. It is beautiful. It's amazing. So yes, I listened to the audiobook she had of this through a YouTube link that she sent through her newsletter. And I listened to it over a few days and it was very sweet. I liked hearing the story, and you get Delphina in this story too, because she comes up and it's an interesting tale. What I love about this is that they're very caring people. They're a little bit rebellious in very good ways. I did have another book to talk about, but I'll save that for next time because this was long and I know there were so many books I went through. I read a lot, and a lot of them I read in one day, especially the novellas and these short stories. Like I will say, like, these 3 books I read in a day each. Actually, some of them I read 2 in a day, maybe. Yeah, I think these 2 I read in one day. Yeah, I did a lot of reading. But here we go into all these Christmas books, and I'm excited, but I'm going to mix it up with other things, but mainly they'll be Christmas books. So yay! Woo! I actually love reading Christmas stories this time of year, and I always have. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I hope you have a great day. Go celebrate. Go have fun.